Everybody, this is Perch. I got this question. It corresponded with something that I had to do today. So I had to go to the Apple store to pick up a new phone. And like every time I have to do this, I always find myself going through a little bit of a journey of why did I order a new phone? Did I really need a new phone? Why am I standing for 45 minutes in a line to get this new phone? And I personally always dislike the way the Apple people they try and make it an event like, oh, wow, you're getting a new phone. Are you excited? I'm like, well, after standing in a line for 45 minutes to get a new piece of phone that ultimately at the end of the day is I'm going to be looking at the glass on the top of it at pixels that I can see today. No, I'm not terribly excited about my new phone. I would have been, I'm basically getting this new phone because I ran out of memory because your old phones, don't have enough storage. So now I had to give you more of my money to get more storage to store more crap. Sorry. Is that what you wanted to know, Apple Store employee? That's too grim. But regardless, I got a question this morning as I was going in because it's Apple launch day at the recording time of this particular video. And people the question was, what is it going to take for comic books to have the same level of excitement, the same level of anxious people as a new iPhone release? What's it going to take for people to line up outside the comic store on a Wednesday to get their comics like people line up outside the store for the release of a new iPhone? The answer is nothing. It won't happen. But that's too casual, sarcastic of a little bit of an answer, because once upon a time, people actually did line up outside comic stores to get new releases on a Wednesday. It's happened. It doesn't happen, regularly, but in the 90s, it was not uncommon that I had people who would line up to get their comics at store opening. I think the store opened I think I opened at 10. And I would have people at like 9:30, 9:45, sometimes on a Wednesday, lined up ready to get the comics. And this was because at the time they were putting out comics that were perceived as highly valuable. You were going to not get it if you didn't line up. And so Death of Superman fell into that, the launch of a lot of the Image books, certainly the X-Men launch, the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont #1 with all the different covers. That was like that. Death of Superman blew all the rest of them away. But that was a line that I think started, God, I remember the local newspaper or something came and covered that because I think people were lined up at like 6 in the morning, at like way early. But anyway, the I think you saw that more recently for the Death of Captain America. That's another one where people actually got to the store and lined up so they could get their hands on that issue. The reason why people line up for anything is a feeling of scarcity, that if they don't get in line, if they don't get there early and line up and wait, that they're not going to be able to get it at all. And the problem with comics is there's really nothing going on today that has that kind of scarcity feeling to it. There's little moments like, hey, did you know in the new Daredevil that Elektra is a new Daredevil? That's, I think, most recent, where you had some big event or some big thing that got some coverage outside of the normal comic community that might have driven some people to the store, but not nearly enough to line up. The Tim Drake comes out as bisexual issue got some local coverage, at least in the Pacific Northwest. And I know some people came into the store who aren't normal comic readers, but that's what it's going to take to get a line. It's going to take something that has the perception of being extremely scarce, got to get your hand on it, that appeals to the normies, the non-regular comic readers who are anxious to pick up this thing. But the other problem that comics face is that the entire idea of a paper physical product is not antiquated, but it's getting there. The same thing will happen if right now with the iPhone, you could basically, sign up and it would be delivered to your door a la Amazon on launch day. Then you wouldn't see people lined up outside the Apple store. They'd just sit at home and wait for it to be delivered. Once upon a time, new video game releases would cause that effect, where people would line up to make sure they could get it, and then pre-orders came in, and then eventually people were like, I could just pre-order again on Amazon, and it could come to my house, and the end. My PlayStation 5 I got via ordering from Sony, and it just showed up at my door, and I never dealt with any of the shops. Obviously, we're in COVID time, so that they're pushing that even harder now, which, again, is going to make it even tougher. The goal of having people line up outside your shop to get their hands on a comic is wonderful. I love it. I love the idea of it. I love the excitement of it. And those times will stick out in my memory forever. I can still remember vividly the day, the weather, everything else about the death of Superman Day. That was it was a wonderful day, a lot of excitement. People are anxious to buy that thing. The following days were less exciting when people would come in like a month later going, I would like to hand you this Death of Superman issue back and you will give me $500 for it. It's like, well, actually, no, it's, you know, I won't buy it for that. That was always the Debbie Downer moment to that entire story with the normies who had no comic experience, realizing that they did not buy a hot rising stock. But anyway, I love it. I would love for those moments to return. It's very unlikely they will return for the two reasons. One, comics aren't producing anything that generates that kind of got to have it right now or it's going to be gone kind of momentum. And two, the entire just a physical product in general is rapidly getting it's just rapidly losing that appeal. People are aware that they can get it on digital. They're aware that they can they're aware that they can get these things. I remember when this sounds like old man talk again, but when the first Avengers came out, the movie, just on not in the theater, but when it was out on Blu-ray, there were people who lined up to get their hands on that movie, just because it was hey, I've got to get this today. Like, why would you? Again, from the comfort of your home, you would just sign up to Disney Plus and you're done, or you would again order on Amazon. There's some loss to that. I mean, it is kind of sad that we're moving to a world. I mean, my kids when they're in their 20s, the idea of waiting in a line outside a store for anything will be absurd unless that line is to gate the people who can be in the store because of COVID distancing requirements. That's it. I was talking to my daughter about waiting in line for the Wii to get the Nintendo Wii back in the day. Because even though it was funny, because I remember that console, I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to actually play this thing. But you had to have it. It was a tech gadget. You got to line up and get this. So I lined up late at night for a midnight release of the Nintendo Wii. And I'm telling her this, and she could not understand anything. Like, why would you go out at night when you could just order on Amazon? I'm like, no, it wasn't on Amazon. There was no. You had to go out and you had to wait in line. And you had to get it, and many people waited in line, and they sold out, and they had to go home without it. My daughter's looking at me like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I would never do that. I'm like, well, you wouldn't now because you didn't live in that time period. But I mean, this is just one of those things that's gone. So the answer to your question is it's not, it won't. There isn't a moment like that that's going to happen. I mean, today, if they announced right now, we are killing off Spider-Man. We're killing off Batman. The problem is they have killed off Spider-Man and Batman. They've done it already. If it got national news attention, I mean, I've been trying to think, like, what would be the thing that would drive people to comic shops to even buy any? I don't know. Like, I don't know. The bat penis reveal in Batman Damned was probably the closest thing that happened around here where I remember you had some news coverage about that and you had people heading to the store. But I don't think there's something the comic industry could do at this point which would successfully lure in a bunch of non-regular comic readers to come to the shop. I don't think there is something. I don't know. I just the most outlandish, crazy thing you could think of. Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel crossover in an issue where they express their love for each other, announce they are queer, and then murder Batman, all in the same issue. Maybe that one. Maybe that would get people to line up outside the store. I don't know. But unfortunately, it's just, I think those days are behind us, just realistically. Now, to the other part of your question, what would it take to, regardless of whether you actually get people to line up or not, the true thing that we should be worrying about is how do we generate that excitement? We may never get a line again because it's just not going to happen based on how the world works and how people can get things. But we should be shooting for that excitement. What's the equivalent of lining up outside of a store hours before opening in order to get your hands on a comic? What is the equivalent of that in 2021? People with massive pre-orders, people who are so excited to see the next issue. The thing that's going on right now, I'm serious about it, is next week we'll launch Inferno #1. And there's a decent amount of people, I think, who are very excited about, seeing where Hickman's story goes. And I think there's a lot of, trepid anticipation about what's going to happen in those pages and if they're going to get an amazing story and all the rest. I think there's some general excitement around that. But what I think has exceeded that Inferno #1 for next week is the final issue, issue 74? Is that of Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man run? There's a lot more people I'm seeing who are legitimately very anxious, very excited to get their hands on that comic, who really want to see what's going to happen, who feel a level of suspense, who feel a level of I don't know, is he going to kill him? Are they going to undo one more day? Is Mary Jane, are they going to get married again? Like what is going to happen in that comic? I can't wait to see it. There's that level of anxious hype for that book. And if you're Marvel, I hope they're paying attention to this because it's different from a relaunch of a #1. It's different for what's going on with Inferno. With Inferno, people want to pick it up. They're interested to see where the story goes. They're wanting to see what the conclusion of Hickman's time on the book looks like. There's certainly excitement around Inferno. But it is a different level with this Spider-Man. With Spider-Man, it's the closest I've seen to how it feels for how it felt in the 90s, how it felt in the in the early 90s when they were killing off Superman, when there was this launch of Spawn. There is a level of actual, it's not at that level, it's not the same level, but it's a similar feel to people who really want to know what happens, who are anxious to know what happens. Unfortunately, in comics, they're written in such a way, they're currently they don't have, there's not a lot of people who are really anxious to know what happens. They may be anxious to read the story, but like you don't pick up, X-Force or the newest issue of Batman that's got Fear State going on. You may be excited about that storyline. You may be excited to see where it's, to read it and to see where it goes, but there's not a level of kind of deep anticipation that I see for this Spider-Man issue. I think that there's something different there, and I hope the comic companies, the publishers, the creators can take a look at that excitement and say, all right, what does this mean to us? Why are people so excited? Is it purely because of fans who are hoping we're going to undo one more day? Is it because Spencer built up a lot of tension in all this? I think that's it's a question worth asking, and I hope the publishers are asking that question. So anyway, that's my answer to your question. It's a good one. I would love to see people lined up outside of a shop. That would just rock. It's sad those days are behind us, but those were good days. Thanks for listening.